Namaste and welcome to Concepts with Karan. I'm just super excited today to speak again to Ashish Somaya, the CEO at White Oak Mutual Fund. It also happens to be Ashish's birthday. So I was telling him before the interview started that why are you talking to me? Why aren't you with your family? So Ashish, thanks a lot for sparing time on your birthday to speak to me. That's very kind of you. And first things first, I just wanted to start by saying I think White Oaks kind of created a lot of good vibes while the launch has been taking place over the last 6 to 8 months. I wanted to start with that itself, Ashish. The vibes are strong, the acceptance is good. What has been your takeaway from your standpoint, from your point of view? How's the response? What has really worked in your favor?
Sure. So thank you very much for inviting me, and also thanks for your kind wishes. See, I think a new organization being built. I think these are opportunities that one gets, few and far between, very, very rarely.
So true.
Like typically, for example, if we assume that, we have a 35 year traditional, 35 year career, and hopefully you do the right things, you end up working with maybe 2 or 3 organizations at best. So from the end, not very often that you would end up joining an organization right when it is being built. And if you really ask me, when you talk in terms of careers or when you talk in terms of professional journeys, I think it's the anecdotes, and I think it's the experiences eventually that you will end up sharing. So for example, when you join a new organization, where was your office at first? Where did you sit? Who joined you early on?
Yeah.
Who stayed the course? So I think one of the things which is exciting is obviously that a lot of anecdotes get built, and those anecdotes and those experiences are literally like multiple different bricks which are being placed. So I think that is always the most exciting part of building a new organization. Now I know that obviously your question relates more to the acceptance of the organization and where rubber meets the road in terms of the acceptance in the market, in the industry, of course with intermediaries as well as end investors and the overall ecosystem. When somebody sets up a new organization, it is always backed by a hypothesis. I mean, you always have some analysis, some reading or some expectation of the marketplace and the market participants. So my hypothesis always was, like for example, in our industry, there are more than 40 asset management companies. If you see the industry data, perceivedly people think that it is very, very top heavy. Very, very difficult as to why new asset management companies are being set up. What type of scope do they have? How will they create a space? How will they differentiate? I think all these challenges are spoken about very often. But my hypothesis clearly was that the market is more open-minded, more meritocratic. It's not, it just doesn't go with mass retail presence, household brands. I think asset management has become more performance-centric, more meritocratic. And whatever I have seen in the last few months, means that the hypothesis is kind of playing out. You can always debate how much of assets one should raise in the first 1 year. I think there's no correlation of how much you raise in the first 1 year and where you will be 10 years later in your journey. So I'm not so focused on the assets, but I think that the hypothesis that the market accepts new players in which they can see merit, I think that is playing out.
Actually, you used a great word, meritocratic acceptance, and not just about household brands. And I think that's a really important statement, and we probably tend to overlook that when we're kind of building for business. You want to spend a couple of more minutes explaining that, Ashish, because sometimes we tend to overlook this concept both as a business and just as while we're building the organization for people as well.
Yeah.
So it'll be great if you can explain that, because it's a very important concept that hits the nail on the head.
Sure. So, in our industry, what would merit actually mean? I always tell people that 90% rule of our business is investment management. So, for example, you can have great brand, you can have great people, but if you ultimately do not deliver in terms of returns or in terms of fund performance, then I think things don't really last for long. And on the other hand, it's equally true that if you have great performance, right, and you don't have good people and don't connect in the industry, then for longish periods of time, the great performance can get unnoticed. But with that also, I think ultimately you will end up delivering what Bollywood calls a sleeper hit at least. Right? So if you have great performance but bad organization,
Yeah.
then it might take some time, but you will eventually still get noticed.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, if you have great organization and no performance, then I think all of that comes to a naught. That's what I meant by
Yeah.
90% rule of the business is investing. So when it comes to meritocracy, what I've realized is 20-25 years back when we all started our careers, people used to look for the mutual fund product category itself was unknown. So
Yeah.
when the product category is unknown, people don't know what to look for. So they will just go for a familiar sounding name or a widely available or a widely bought name, let's put it that way. But over the number of years, as the product category has become more and more evolved, more and more people are familiar with it, they understand what goes in. Then, I think they become a bit more discerning that it's not about the name, it's not about wide availability, it is about the ability to deliver performance.
Yeah.
So, in terms of who are the people behind the organization, what is their past track record, what is their acceptance, what type of team has been put in. I think Whiteoak has been able to demonstrate all of that, with our founder, with our investment team, with the track records of these people, with the investing philosophy, the process. I think a lot of those things people have accepted, and we have been able to demonstrate that. So that's what I meant. And
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, if you put this on the table, then you do get accepted. I think that is what I can see.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. And just getting those foundations right in itself can take decades for organizations. What you're really saying is that you put that together on day one, and then the track record is all over getting played out. Which is the point I was making, that I think there's been a very good widespread acceptance of the brand, even though it may not necessarily resonate with many people, just because
Yeah,
it's not been around for a pretty long time, and yet the acceptance
absolutely.
has been much better. So just to kind of end this point, what for you, Ashish, has been the most positive takeaway of the last 8-10 months of building the business and the NFOs and now with the tracker? मतलब एक best चीज क्या लगी in your personal capacity, like ये मजा आ गया?
See, I think what I have enjoyed, or what has encouraged me the most,
हाँ.
is something which you have also been kind enough to acknowledge it in another forum. But when I go out, just to give you a sense of perspective, I joined White Oak Group in September 2020. And when I joined, bulk of our assets under management, more than 90% of our assets under management, was global money invested into India.
Yeah.
And that is more institutional in nature. And the whole organization, as a result of global focus and more institutional presence, the organization was less than 30 people. Today, if I take global and domestic all put together, the organization is north of 380 people. So you can imagine how many people we have onboarded and how many people we have hired. And of course, the split of the business has moved from 90 is to 10 global versus domestic. It's now, under 70% global and more than 30% domestic, something in that ballpark. And in this entire period, we built our PMS and AIF business. Then we acquired Yes AMC and launched our mutual fund. So this entire journey has entailed populating operations, service, of course, investments, research, sales and distribution, and the wider organization. I think hiring has been the most difficult and the most exciting part. And what gives me maximum joy is when I am told that we have good people in our because when I mentioned that the industry has become meritocratic, that's not just about ability to attract channel partners or investors. It's also about the ability to attract talent.
So true.
And that takes a lot of doing, impressing intelligent people
So true.
to be able to, spare some of their most important years of life with us. I think that's big.